Now, the fight to protect biological women is well and truly on
No,
as brave gender activists launch Respect My Sex, If You Want My Ex, the most important feminist movement since the suffragettes, in my opinion. As the feisty campaigners demand politicians define what a biological female is. It's great to have them on my show for their first TV interview last Thursday. My next guest was well ahead of her time on this issue, which should be straightforward, but has become contentious. So in 2020, legendary former Woman's Hour presenter Dame Jenni Murray found herself shunned by the BBC after almost 50 years of service for daring to publicly challenge the mainstream narrative on gender identity. So Jenni first started to feel the BBC leash tightening when she wrote a trailblazing article calling for trans activists just to acknowledge the difference between sex and gender and a trans woman and a woman. She was branded a TERF on social media and sent all kinds of threats, but what shocked her most was the response by the BBC. Given a public ticking off, Jenni was informed that she was not able to chair any discussions on the trans question or the proposed changes to the Gender Recognition Act, a debate listeners were desperately calling out for. And I'm delighted to say that she's away from Auntie's suffocating embrace and is here now to let loose. Dame Jenni Murray, great to have you back. You were certainly ahead of your time on this one, weren't you?
I was. It was 5 years ago?
Or 6 years ago, yeah. I wrote that article. And what had made me so cross, this whole question of what is a real woman, you know, is a trans woman a woman? And then the whole language started to change. And it was suddenly chest feeding and not breastfeeding. And I thought, hang on a minute, no, you know, they can't change the language that we have lived with for years. And that's what really made me cross at the beginning. And as things have gone on, I have got crosser and crosser and more surprised because none of us have been horrible about trans people. We've said, you know, as J.K.
Quite
Rowling
the opposite,
said,
actually.
Absolutely clearly at the beginning, you know, love who you want, go to bed with who you want if they'll have you. We don't care about that, but do be clear that there is a difference between sex and gender, and stop trying to ease us, women who've fought so hard for our rights, out of our safe spaces. And this campaign has the most brilliant title I think I've ever heard. Whoever thought that up was a genius. Respect my sex if you want my ex. In other words, my ex on the ballot paper. Because so many politicians have not really known what to say on this question.
Well,
I think you've got some examples.
Yeah, I want to play you some, Jenni, because they're quite shocking. You can react off the back, so have a look at this.
Okay.
She's a woman.
Well, I thought the Prime Minister answered this brilliantly in Prime Minister's Question Times, in Prime Minister's Questions this week, and I fully agree with him.
And so what is your definition of a woman?
As I said, I would exactly agree with what the Prime Minister said at Prime Minister's Question Time.
When we're having a social media or a debate around whether what genitalia someone's got, I think it really debases the serious issues that people face.
A woman can have a penis.
I don't think that discussing this issue in this way helps anyone in the long run.
People are complex, that they are different.
Well, I have to say that there are different definitions legally around what a woman actually is. I mean, you look at the definition within the Equality Act, and I think it just says someone who is adult and female, I think, but then doesn't say how you define either of those things.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Look, is it transphobic? Look, I don't even know how to start answering these questions.
A woman says, I don't know how to answer that question because, of course, only a woman can have a cervix, just as only a man can have a penis. And yes, you know, there will be some trans people who will have genital surgery, but you don't manufacture your sex. Your sex is what you are born with. It's in your chromosomes. It's right the way through your body. And it often determines how people react to you. You know, a lot of expectations are placed on men to be very masculine and manly, and a lot of expectations placed on women to be very feminine and very female. And not all of us are, regardless of what our sex is, but our sex is our sex. Our gender is how we perceive ourselves or how we're perceived by people outside. And these people really need to be absolutely clear. They're politicians. They will make the laws. We totally depend upon them to make the laws. And we women have fought for years and years and years to get safe spaces. I went to the theatre not very long ago, and I'm not a prude at all. And, I have a husband and 2 sons who are grown up. I know men very, very well. But I went to the toilet, and it was a gender anybody toilet. And it did have individual cubicles, so, you weren't walking past guys who were at a urinal. But the door opened as I was coming out of the loo, and this guy was coming in through the door, and he was unzipping his fly. And I thought, that is not right. No. You shouldn't do that.
No. And no one really wants it. That's the bizarre thing. So we're changing society in so many ways, actually, for something that the majority don't want.
I absolutely agree with you. I've been thinking, with this new campaign, I just hope it gets to people in Barnsley, say, which is where I'm from. I can just imagine the response of some of the women on Barnsley Market who say to, let's say, Keir Starmer, who's the leader of the Labour Party, who really didn't know quite what to say about what is a woman. And if one of these women says to him, what is a woman? And he says, well, it's complicated, isn't it? I can just imagine the abuse that's going to come out at him.
Well, how can he be Prime Minister, in all seriousness, while maintaining that position?
Well, he can't. But I think the Labour Party are beginning to be aware that, middle-aged women are the voters that they really need. They're desperate for middle-aged and older women to vote.
Much older,
and they're going to lose huge numbers of votes if they can't be sensible about the difference between sex and gender.
That's why I think this campaign is so effective, because the organisers are encouraging folk to, when the council representative or the potential council representative or the person running for MP knocks on your door, just ask them one question. Just say, what is a woman? And if they can't answer adult human female, you probably know you're not going to want to vote for them. But it also gets through their head that they have to look at this issue and take it seriously.
They do, because it has been handled appallingly over a number of years. And I'm just dying for somebody to come and knock on my door.
I know, I want it to happen too, because I'm going to have my phone at the ready. Jenni, can I just ask, finally, about the BBC, because of course I introduced you by talking about that time at the BBC when they made that decision, and it is a long time ago. But the reason I want to touch on it is because I just wonder if, looking back now, you are more convinced that that was the wrong decision, and if the BBC needs to start having these conversations on Women's Hour, which is something that they backed away from.
It's beginning to happen. I listen to the programme a lot still. I didn't for about a year. It was, when you've done something for 33 years and loved every minute of it.
It's odd, isn't it?
It's really hard to listen to somebody else doing it and it being slightly different. But I've started listening again. I've listened to Women's Hour all my life, or presented it. It's always been very much a part of my life, and they are now beginning to discuss these things. And it needs to be talked about. But what we really need is to get sensible trans women with sensible women. And let's have some sort of discussion where we work out how we work through this business. Because you cannot have trans women going into changing rooms where there are girls. In fact, the guides today have announced that they are going to change their policy on allowing trans girls to go to camp. So they're looking at it. I do have a feeling that things are just moving in the right direction. Fingers crossed.
Well, look, you were at the forefront of it, Dame Jenni Murray. So it was absolutely brilliant to have you on this, and we'll speak again very soon.
Thank you.
That was the journalist and, of course, the Daily Mail columnist now, Dame Jenni Murray. But coming up, have we found